Hello, Steeler Nation. I'm your host, G.Stryker, and welcome to your SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. You've seen him on ESPN, you've seen him on ABC and Monday Night Football. NFL Analyst Louis Riddick is with the show today. Louis, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this. You know, obviously my connections to Pittsburgh run way back. So
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Football's kicking off. Great time of year, isn't it?
It is. It's a perfect time of year, and you segued into the perfect question for me to start off the show with. Steeler Nation, you played 3 years for University of Pittsburgh right there for the Pitt Panthers.
Yeah.
How was your experience in the city of Pittsburgh?
Well, actually, I played 4. I should have left early. There's no question about that. The draft status would have probably been a lot better than it was in 91 when I did get drafted. But
yeah.
I'll tell you, I loved everything about Pittsburgh when I went there. My cousin Tim Lewis was a first round pick of the Green Bay Packers in 1983. I grew up going to my very first big time football game, college or pro, was, I believe, 1978 Pitt Penn State at Beaver Stadium. Mm-hmm. You know, this is when Hugh Green, Ricky Jackson, Bill Moss was a freshman, and Danny Marino was a freshman.
Wow.
Julius Dawkins, Jimbo Covert. I mean, it was just a who's who. I mean, it was a pro football team on both sides of the ball. So that from that early age, from seeing Pitt play, seeing Jackie Sherrill walk on the sidelines with the yellow blazer, I knew that I wanted to be a Pitt Panther right from the get-go. My dad wanted me to go to Penn State.
Yeah.
But I decided to go to Pittsburgh, and I loved every second of it. Mike Godfrey was my head coach at the time for 3 years. Paul Hackett was the coach the last year in 91 after Mike left. But I loved it. Played with some great players, All-Americans, first-round draft picks. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Pitt's a lot different now. Mm-hmm. I mean, campus is a lot different. The facilities are a lot different. The city's a lot different. The South Side wasn't there when I was in Pittsburgh. So, but we try and get back my family, my wife, and my kids as much as possible. And it's one of my favorite places on earth, no question.
Nice. And you covered the draft this year for ESPN and ABC. What are your thoughts specifically on the Pittsburgh Steelers draft and how they did?
Yeah, you know, what's interesting is that I know everybody wants the Steelers running game to improve. Okay, everybody wants from ownership on down, they want the running game to improve. Okay, and they want to become a more physical football team. I just don't know if necessarily that starts with the position with which they addressed it with. I mean, Najee's he's a stud. Yeah, he's an absolute stud. There's nothing he can't do. But until they capture the line of scrimmage and are able to impose their will on, and I don't even see. I think impose your will is kind of like it's not a very accurate term, because in the NFL you don't ever just impose your will. These are all grown men. They're all pretty damn good. So but I think until you become at least competent up front, we just don't know whether or not Najee's going to give them the return on investment that they necessarily want. So I think just overall from that perspective, if you really want to focus in on him, look, Freiermuth is one of those guys from a tight end perspective who, look, I'll tell you quite honestly, I was not that high on as a pass receiver. Mm-hmm. I did not view him as someone who, from a controlling the middle of the field perspective in the pass game, that I would be that worried about. But he is a tenacious, competitive blocker. And hopefully that will give them some presence on the edges as far as, the tight end room is concerned. I'm just a little bit worried about whether or not they have done enough to really be able to fix some of the issues that they had last year when the offense became a little bit sideways in terms of its balance between run and pass. And whether or not Mr. Rooney ultimately is going to be happy with that. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. I know Mike is going to put a lot of emphasis into it. Mm-hmm. I know Matt Canada is going to put a lot of emphasis on it. We'll see what it does.
So now, obviously, this whole Steeler offensive line is in flux. It's a completely new offensive line from 2 years ago. And even now with the surprise retirement of David DeCastro, it's even thrown another monkey wrench into the situation. Do you think from a football scheming perspective, is it easier to have your team and newer offensive linemen line up to block for the run or line up to block for the pass?
Well, I think it's always easier for offensive linemen to go forward than backwards. So let's just say that. Like I think when you have a new offensive line, the way to get them kind of comfortable and settled in is to establish the physical aspect of the game and get them up on their toes, not back on their heels, and coming off the football.
Yeah.
And establishing that, whether that be zone scheme, gap scheme, inside run, outside run, really doesn't make a difference to me. It's really a mindset as far as getting them kind of, conditioned to playing the game the way you want them to play it, which is smash mouth, come off the football, play physical.
Yeah.
Then obviously getting them on the same page so they're kind of like, as Joe Bugle, the legendary Washington football team offensive line coach, used to say, like elephants on a string. So they're all just moving together.
Yeah.
You obviously want to get that kind of chemistry going.
Right.
Because then I think when it comes to pass protection, obviously that chemistry is very, very important. Obviously their athleticism and some of their deficiencies get kind of highlighted in particular in pass pro. But I think it all starts with the run game. I think the run blocking obviously is a lot easier than pass protection given some of the athletes in the NFL. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing in Pittsburgh's situation, because I think that's who they want to be anyway. They want to be a more physical run team. So I think if they get that, as we saw last year, even when you have deficiencies in pass protection, you can kind of mitigate that a little bit with the quick passing game and getting the ball out of your hands fast. And you don't necessarily want to have to do that like they had to because Ben was getting hit so much.
Yeah.
But I think you can mitigate it a little bit. They have to be able to run the ball. I think that's where the point of emphasis will be in training camp right from the get-go.
Nice. Twitter chiming in here. Lewis is awesome from John Manglis. So thanks there very much for checking in. Everybody's super excited for you being on the cast today, as well as myself. So thank you very much for sharing your time with Steeler Nation. We love it. So moving on, I mean, you as an analyst, you got a good read on all of the teams. Specifically for the Steelers, though, what do you feel that their biggest need is for this season? I mean, we touched the offensive line.
Yeah, and I think again, I think it's going to start there. And look, I don't think that Pittsburgh needs to come out and be averaging 4.8, something ridiculous, 5 yards per rush. That's not going to happen. I mean, it's just not. Yeah. There's just too much uncertainty, I believe, on the offensive line in order for them to wind up becoming that kind of dominant run team. I think Mike put it best last year. They need to be competent. Yeah. As far as that's concerned, a credible threat of the run game, so then they can build the passing game off of that. Yeah. So maybe the play action passing game becomes a little bit more of a factor. Mm-hmm. And everything isn't just 11 personnel, 3 wides and a tight end, or or 10 personnel with 4 wides and Ben's back there in the gun and he's just trying to throw the ball real quick. Yeah. Where it becomes a little bit more strategic. I think that's one of the things that they have to be able to get done. They have to be able to establish a competent run game, and we'll see if they can do that. I think, and if they do that, there's no question that they have perimeter weaponry. They have plus 20-yard game breakers. Okay, Claypool can do it with the best of them. Deontay can do it with the best of them with the ball in his hands. He's one of the best route runners in the NFL, period. And I thought that when he came out of school.
Agreed.
Exactly. Najee's a beast.
Yes.
The kid's a flat-out beast. And we saw it all year long in Alabama last year. Yeah. They have the glitz and glamour. Do they have the beef in the middle to get it done? And then for Ben, it's just about, as much excitement as there is for Ben at the beginning of the year, as far as, he comes in, he looks like he's feeling great. His arm feels good. His body looks fresh. Just making sure he can maintain himself all year long by his own doing and by the offensive line keeping him protected and not getting him hit. You just can't get a guy like him hit later on in the year the way maybe he used to be able to take it. So I think that's going to be important too. Defensively, look, I mean, I think we all know that, this was a top 3 scoring defense last year. I think the expectation is that they'll be in that same area again. Yeah. And I think they're going to need to be. Yeah. Look, Melvin Ingram, that addition to go along with TJ, and then I think a guy like Alex Highsmith, who I think is going to be one of the breakout players in the NFL this year. That's as good of a trio rushing the passer as it gets. Cam Hayward's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yes, agreed.
His father was
Ironhead was something else to watch. Oh,
exactly. Yeah. Devin Bush is a stud. He needs to come back healthy. Spillane will knock your head off. Ask Derrick Henry how that feels to get hit by him. And you've heard how Mike talks about Minka. Mm-hmm. And the reverence with which he holds him, I mean, it's amazing to me that Miami let him get out of there and they couldn't find a way in order to tap into this young man's potential the way Mike has,
Yeah.
the way this Steeler defense is overall. So I think they'll hold up their end. Special teams needs to make sure they hold up their end as far as establishing good field position, giving short fields to this offense, flipping the field whenever necessary in the return game. But the offense for sure up front.
Yeah.
As much as we are in a fantasy football driven world, and we want to know, well, how many catches is Deontay going to have? How many drops is Deontay going to have? How many drops is he not going to have?
Yeah.
How many big plays is Chase going to make? How many catches is Najee going to have? How many yards going to run for? Tell me how Chooks plays. Tell me how
Banner plays.
Zach Banner plays. Yep. Exactly. Tell me how those guys do, and I'll tell you how everything else goes.
Awesome. John also wants to know, and I also know that, you played secondary in the NFL. You were drafted to play secondary. So you've got a good, probably an expert's understanding of the secondary, obviously. Yeah. So John wants to know also on Twitter what you think about the cornerbacks, especially with the Steelers losing Hilton and Nelson this year. Will they be able to hold up with the personnel that they have?
Yeah, that's going to be a great question. Look, I think when you have guys who maybe will have some questions about, especially when you're talking about pure man-to-man coverage, that at some point in time, everybody has to play.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're talking third and medium, you can't sit back, third and medium, 3rd and 4 or less, 3rd and 5 or less. You can't sit back and just play Pittsburgh's fire zone or play some kind of loose zone coverage where you're trying to protect against a deep ball, play it soft, and expect to get off the field on 3rd down. So that's where you may have some concerns. Where does Joe Hayden at this point in his career? What is he? How is he going to come back? And how is he going to look from that perspective? Those are the questions that I would have with them on the edges right now. When it's a quick strike passing team, the pass rush doesn't have enough time to get there, and these guys have to hold up in man-to-man coverage. That's where I would have some concerns. We'll see if they can answer those questions early on. Yeah, I think that's what we're looking to see, is whether or not I have my concerns about that. I think overall, when you watch Pittsburgh historically, maybe people have knocked if there was a way in which they would knock the defense, it would be, look, what would this secondary be if it didn't have a great pass rush? We'll find out here. But I think they have a good way, Pittsburgh does, of playing great team defense overall, to where they're just so resourceful as far as disguising.
Yeah.
As far as pass rush is concerned, being great ball hawks, very opportunistic as far as jumping the quarterback, getting a good beat on the throw, that they make up for some of the limitations that they may have as far as having a top flight shutdown Jalen Ramsey type of corner.
Yeah, good points. With the Steelers also this year, I mean, they're in a very difficult division. 3 playoff teams from last year. Cincinnati's on the rise with Joe Burrow. What is the best that the Steelers can finish in your mind this season?
I think the best, still, they are in contention to win the North, and I think they will always be in contention to win the North as long as they have competent quarterback play and Mike Tomlin is the head coach and they play defense the way they do. So I think now, interestingly enough, and I've said this on TV recently, Pittsburgh could finish anywhere. It almost reminds me, the North in the AFC reminds me a little bit of the West in the NFC. Pittsburgh could find themselves finishing first. Or they could find themselves being in a dogfight to stay out of the cellar, being last. Because I think the teams have improved that much. Baltimore is going to be there. They're going to be even better, especially with the weapons that they added on the perimeter. And I think they're one of the best coached defenses in the NFL. And speaking of secondaries, they have the toughest secondaries in the league.
Agreed. Yeah, Humphreys is a monster.
Sure. Cleveland's going to be there. Yeah. They're going to be there. And as much as, look, as a former Brown, as much as Steeler Nation doesn't want to hear that, Cleveland is legit.
Yeah.
They're legit. And I think they've hit their stride now. And it's going to be like the battles used to be back when I was battling with the Steelers in the early 90s and mid-90s. I think that's how it's going to be from now on. And Joe Burrow, if you listen to like his personal quarterback coach, Jordan Palmer, he believes Joe Burrow is just going to absolutely go off this year from an accuracy standpoint, efficiency standpoint, arm strength standpoint, making throws that you maybe haven't even seen him make yet, even during his time at LSU. And Jamar Chase is legit. And we know T. Higgins has got a lot of ability. And Tyler Boyd, look, that's a Pitt guy. You know Tyler Boyd can play.
Yeah.
That's a tough division overall.
It is.
It really is. And you wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah.
But look, Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. Mike is Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Ben has won a lot of football games. Cam is greatly they're in for a fight, man.
Yeah.
They're in for a fight. And as much as I keep coming back to this, anybody who gets to go watch them in training camp, when they start playing their preseason games, just sit there and keep your eyes right down the line of scrimmage and see if they are moving the opposition the right way or if they're getting pushed back. Because that will, honestly, I swear, as simplistic as that sounds, that is going to give you a good indication of how the season is going to go for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, you touched on Ben Roethlisberger. You touched on the quarterback. Obviously, 3 Heisman quarterbacks on the other 3 teams. Ben Roethlisberger probably entering his last year in the league. Do you rank Ben Roethlisberger as a top 10 quarterback?
Honestly, objectively speaking, as much as I love Ben and I respect him and enjoyed talking to him last year, I don't know if he's in that category anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Yeah. You don't have to be top 10 per se, whatever metric you want to use, whether that's QBR, completion percentage above expectation, according to next gen, whatever it is you want to use. I don't know if you necessarily need to be that in order for them to get to where they want to get to. Mm-hmm. Because, again, I think Pittsburgh needs to be a complementary football team, not just the Ben Roethlisberger show anyway.
Right.
So I'm not too worried about that. What I am worried about is him taking too many hits, maybe getting that arm dinged up or a knee or an ankle or something like that where he can't utilize what he does have left at this point in time. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what worries me about him. So, no, I think there are some young guns in the NFL right now who just from a pure talent standpoint are better than Ben, and I think Ben would tell you the same thing. And the league is in good shape when it comes to that position. So he's not – I don't think he's there anymore. But, again, in order for them to accomplish what they want to accomplish, he doesn't need to be.
And that's what I'll say. I agree with you. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback anymore, but I do know he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he can still make the right plays at the right time to get this team to win football games. So that's
no doubt about that.
Interested to see what the new talent this year to see if we can continue to do that.
Sure.
Speaking of another quarterback on the Steelers, I mean, Steeler Nation was excited about this interview on Twitter. They were asking me to ask you a specific question, but you worked with the Redskins organization. You understand that team, Washington team itself. But we would like to know what you think about Dwayne Haskins. Does he have the potential to become an NFL starting quarterback? And just what are your thoughts on him in general?
Yeah, I was anticipating this and looking forward to this question. Look,
awesome.
I have always been a huge backer and supporter of Dwayne. I think he could not have gone to a worse situation than what he did in Washington, both from structurally what was surrounding him and then philosophically what the push-pull was in terms of them wanting him or not wanting him anyway.
Right.
And the battle between coaches, front office, coaches versus coaches, owner versus front office, whatever the hell was going on there. It's just we already know that in order to be successful at quarterback, you need to have a lot of things, most things, all things aligned in the same direction for you in order for you to really hit your maximum potential. And there, nothing was aligned for him, nothing. And that's not to take – now, that is not to absolve Dwayne of any of the responsibility as far as some of the decisions that he made in Washington and the ways in which he did not maximize his own potential while he was there, because that's inexcusable too.
Yeah.
And he needs to make sure that those kinds of things never happen again. Because if you can't get your crap together off the field and make sure you're getting to the building on time, making sure that you're dialed in, learning the things you need to, then it doesn't matter. Everything else, they can set everything else up for you the way you ideally want. It's not going to work anyway. That being said, this kid can throw the football as well. I think Ben was the one who said it was it during OTAs that he said,
yes,
I've never seen a guy throw the football like this.
Yeah.
He may have as much pure arm throwing ability as anybody I've ever seen. Alex Smith says the same thing, who was with him in Washington.
Wow.
This guy is as talented throwing the football as anybody he said he had ever seen. And now this is a guy who's been around Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
So he has all that. He has everything. He's at the right place now as far as being around Mike, being around Ben, being around the Steeler way, the Steeler organization, everything from front office on down, ownership on down. It's all there in order to kind of like for Dwayne to kind of just like submerge himself into all football all the time. Mm-hmm. Make sure I'm taking care of stuff off the field. When I get there to the UPMC complex, I'm doing what I need to do. I'm learning from Ben. I'm listening to Mike. I'm just doing what I need to do, because if he can do all those things, once he steps on the field and Matt Canada gives him the play call and he walks up to the line of scrimmage, there's nothing he can't do. Nothing as far as throwing that football. Make those decisions, throw the football accurate. So we'll see if he can get all the other stuff aligned, because if he can, the talent is there. And I think, quite honestly, look, they could potentially, this is going to work out two ways for the Steelers and for Dwayne.
Yeah.
Either they got the steal of a lifetime in this quarterback in Dwayne, or Dwayne's going to disappear. And the league will move right on like it always does.
Yeah.
Like a big, giant locomotive. It just keeps on going. Mm-hmm. They'll find the next guy.
Yeah.
And I know this as a player, and I know this as a front office guy.
Yeah.
As a scout said to me a long time ago, and the scouts say all the time, my job is to replace you. If I can't replace you, I've done my job. That's how the league works.
Wow.
And Dwayne needs to understand that too, but he's at the right place now. If he can't get it going here, he can't get it going. And I'm excited as hell for him. I stay in contact with him personally, text with him, all kinds of stuff.
Great.
I'm rooting for the kid more than I'm his biggest pom-pom carrier and cheerleader. No question.
That's great. And we just heard some reports here, and within the past 48 hours, we hear that coaches have been glowing his reviews from his work ethic, him understanding of the football game, doing the extra work, going above and beyond. And these are things you never heard about in Washington.
No. And you know what? And when you're a young guy like that, and you know that you're coming in kind of behind the eight ball a little bit, where you know that there's certain factions of an organization that didn't want you, and you hear it, and you hear people on our networks talking about it, like the head coach didn't even want this guy. It was the owner who wanted. How the hell do you think that makes you feel when you're 20, 21, 22 years old? You're just like,
right.
Here I am. I'm realizing my childhood dream, and the organization that drafted me didn't want me, or there's people here who are like against me. That's a hard thing. I know when I was 20, 21, 22, that would have put me in the tank.
Yeah.
Again, that doesn't excuse us for the decisions that we make.
True.
And having to, deal with the consequences.
Right.
But of course, they put him behind the eight ball. And, Mike's not having that. Kevin Colbert's not having that. Mr. Rooney's not having that kind of crap. He's at the right place.
And that's a perfect point, too. I think Mike Tomlin is the perfect mentor and leader of men for him to be around and to thrive. And I hope the best for him as well. And it's interesting to me that we've already seen, now this is something that's never happened as far as following the Steelers, being a fanatic the way we are. Mm-hmm. The depth chart just came out. Mm-hmm. Usually the new quarterback is always listed at the end.
Yeah.
He's currently listed at number 3 on the depth chart, just joining ahead of Dobbs, who's been on the team for years.
Yeah.
Well, so that speaks a lot to his character and how the Steelers are thinking that, hey, look, you're immediately going to be competing for backup, not competing for a job, not competing for a roster slot. So that means a lot. So that's a really interesting thing.
Yeah, that is. And it's, I think, look, I mean, Kevin Colbert's been around a long time.
Right.
And I've heard some of the comments that he's made about how excited they are to see what Dwayne has at this point. They know they needed to get him straight off the field. Mm-hmm. And so he could really shine on the field. This guy's a top 15 pick. I mean,
right. Right.
I mean, he threw 50 touchdowns at Ohio State. Right. So it's not like, and people go, well, it's Ohio State. Well, I mean, Justin Fields tore it up too. And you know what? I don't think it's just because it's, Ryan Day or it was just because it was Urban Meyer when Dwayne was. These guys are good players.
Yes.
They're quality guys. But the line between success or failure, or success at a very high level and just being a mediocre player in the NFL, is very thin when you're talking about guys who are this talented. And most of the time it has to do with your decision making, not even when you are at the facility. It's when you're away from there. And what are your thoughts, your habits, priorities as far as, do I just want to be a quarterback in the NFL and be like, yeah, I have a nice car, I make a lot of money? Or do you want to be one of the greats?
You're right.
So that's the decision that Dwayne has to make. And again, he knows how much I love the kid, how much I love him, and how much I'm supporting him. And look, when Mike signed him, and they went out there, look, I know Mike, I know Danny Smith, the special teams coach there, is a great friend of mine.
Oh, nice.
Time in Washington.
Yeah.
Look, I'm pretty connected with that place, and I root for the Steelers anyway, even though I hated them as a kid. But but because I believe it or not, I was a Cowboy fan, man.
No way! Wow.
You know
See,
what?
I would have thought Buffalo.
You know why? Here, I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
I was a Cowboy fan. Why?
Yeah.
Because I was a Dorset fan.
Oh.
Okay.
Yep.
I loved Dorset.
Yeah.
When he won the Heisman, when he came out from Pitt in 77, like I just followed Dorset, so I automatically became a Cowboy fan. And the Steelers, here's the funny: the Steelers were always kicking the Cowboys' ass, so I was always mad at them. Like, you're kidding me? They beat them all the time, but I love Dorset.
Yeah.
So you know what? I mean, that's a funny story that I used to tell people when I went to Pitt. They were like, "You didn't like the Steelers?" I was like, "That's because I like Dorset." So I kind of like the Steelers because I like Pittsburgh. So anyway.
I think you just gave me the best answer to anyone who told me why they are a Dallas Cowboys fan. No other answer I've ever heard has ever been like, I can get behind that, but that's the first one I could get behind.
Exactly. It's probably the only answer that Steeler Nation would accept and not like want to kick me off of this Zoom.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've now hit the point in the podcast we take questions from Steeler Nation. We put up a post on the football thread, which is a phenomenal football thread over at SteelerNation.com. And we ask forum members and open it up then to all of social media, what they think or what they want to know. And /Steel, talking about your PA roots, he asked what your favorite team was growing up. We obviously know it's the Dallas Cowboys, but he also knows you're related to Tim Lewis. Can you tell us about your relationship with Tim and his time in Pittsburgh, and if you had any interactions with him during that time?
Yeah, look, Tim's mom and my mom are sisters. We grew up basically, in southeastern PA as neighbors. I saw Tim every day as a kid. He was the guy who ultimately I wanted to be like because, we had 4 members of our family play professional football. Tim's brother Will played professional football. My brother Rob was a 9th round pick of the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
So I was going to pro football games and going to Tim's games at Pitt when I was in 6th grade, 7th grade.
Oh, cool.
He lives in Atlanta now. He has a beautiful family down there. When he was when I was playing for the Browns, I'm trying to think, was he still at Pitt coaching, or he may have been an assistant for the Steelers at that time? And so we have always, he was an assistant on Cowher's staff. He coached, Tim coached some of the great ones there at Pittsburgh. He was a great defensive coordinator for the Steelers for a while there. Should have had a couple different head coaching jobs in the National Football League.
Right, yeah, he had some chances there, yeah.
Absolutely. He's as smart as they come when it comes to football. He was one of the great corners in the NFL when he played for the Packers. He knows how much I love and respect him as a person, as an athlete, as someone who was a mentor to me, and someone who's blood. So, what else can I say? I just saw him recently, this summer at a family function, and he's a freaking stud. That's all I can say.
Over here on Twitter, CJ Lester asks, what do you think of Terrell Edmunds' progression?
Yeah, I think, when you're talking about the safeties overall, I think Terrell needs to become that all-around ball player, kind of like Minka can be, right? So if you could have 2 guys like that, 2 guys who you can deploy in multiple different ways, as far as whether they play split safety, single safety, down in the box, blitzing, covering backs, covering tight ends, the better. Okay, so that's what you want from him. I think his deep field play is the area that you would want to have be the same, or rather be on par with a guy like Minka, so you can kind of like interchange those two. He's probably a guy who obviously is maybe a little bit better the closer you have him to the line of scrimmage, second level or down on the line of scrimmage. But look, I think there's obviously room for him to improve his game and room for him to take his game to the next level. So we'll see what happens.
Nice. Colton Gesser wants to know off of Twitter, would you have done anything different this year with the Steelers draft if you were in control?
Yeah, I just think, look, I'm one of those people who believe you should kind of build it front to back, inside out. So I probably would have been trying to invest even more resources right away, on the offensive line and making sure that I took care of it that way. I don't look, as much as I like Najee, again, I don't know if I would have taken him in the first round. But look, I'm not gonna question Kevin Colbert. He's built a lot of great football teams. Mike knows exactly what he wants. So I get it. I get the fact that, as to why they took him. They thought they needed more explosiveness, more size, more speed, more power in the running back room.
Right.
But I probably would have been looking to see if I could have made myself even better along the offensive line and gotten someone who I thought represented good value, either there or trading down and picking up someone who could really help out that area of the team. But and then again, I told you I had my reservations about Freiermuth, and we'll see what happens there, and how he develops and what he's able to ultimately give them. But hey, look, I'm not here. We do enough, nitpicking on football.
Right.
It's time now to just see how they put them all together.
And it relates to Steeler fan 448's question. If you were the GM of the Steelers, would you have changed the offseason approach?
Yeah, I guess again, I think philosophically, all of my attention would have been on, look, how do we get ourselves going from a physicality standpoint on the offensive line?
Yeah.
But they feel as though maybe some of the guys that they have will be better in 2021, number one overall, and we'll see if that winds up happening. And I think, without sitting here and trying to find more creative ways to kind of say the same thing, I think it's just going to start there. We're going to see if Mike can get these guys coached up and whether or not, as a group of five, they can be better than they were last year, reset the line of scrimmage, provide some running lanes, so where again they can be much more multiple than they were last year, which we know they became a one-dimensional football team, and it just kind of like stalled their season out.
Yeah. Now, John also wants to know, do you think Mason Rudolph could become a starter in the NFL one day?
I think Mason's upside is exactly where it's at right now, as far as being a guy who, I think in scouting, one of the definition of a backup, when we used to write it in our scouting notebooks, was a guy who could fill in 3 to 4 games for the starter, hold the fort down, not necessarily win games for you, but hopefully not lose them until the starter gets back.
Yeah.
That's what a backup is. Mm-hmm. That's what Mason is.
Perfect.
Okay. And that's okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of great stories about backup quarterbacks who have gone on to make millions of dollars for years. So I'm not trying to disparage Mason Rudolph. I just think we've seen what we've seen of him, and Pittsburgh's long-term answer at the quarterback position outside of Ben, I don't think it involves him. We'll see what happens with Dwayne, or we'll see if down the road it's someone else that they wind up having to get in position to draft.
Now, Ruga Perk has an interesting question. I mean, I know you mentioned earlier you think Highsmith is going to be a breakout player here on defense. Mm-hmm. Do you have a breakout player for offense for the Steelers this season?
Look, Deontay's already broken out. Chase is already broken out.
But I can see Deontay as taking that next level. Yeah, like I said, that route running is insane. Him get off on the line of scrimmage and not being his separation is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think I think if we want to. In that vein, then, look, I think Deontay is who he is. He needs to make sure that, just from a mental standpoint, he doesn't have these issues with dropping the football. But I think he's already established that I'm one of those guys who will absolutely break your ankles at the line of scrimmage, and I'll turn you inside out as a route.
Yeah.
So he's already established that. I think from a true breakout perspective, I think Chase is probably then the guy that you really want to look at, Claypool, and see. Now, let's just see what this young man does now for 17 weeks, where he's just getting after it. And can he be can Chase Claypool be a 1,500 yard receiver? Can he be an 80, 90 catch guy? Because look at, he's built like Mike Evans. He's built like
huge.
No, I'm not going to say he's built like Megatron, but
that's why we call Mapletron instead of Megatron.
You know what though? When I saw Chase down at the Senior Bowl, and they had some huge wide receivers. I mean, I think he was on the same roster as Gandy Golden, Denzel Mims. There were some huge guys down there that year, and I remember when Chase lined up, I was like, oh my God! And I was right down on the field next to him. Yep. And there were people going, "Oh, he needs to go to tight end. He's not a good enough route runner." I'm going, "Get the hell out of here! This guy." I mean, do you see this guy? He's a freak.
Yeah.
He could be that guy who was like the next great, like the kind of guy who we look at. And when they come out on the football field, I feel the same way as when I saw Megatron walk out of the football field in Detroit, when I saw Brandon Marshall from the Broncos. I just looked at it and I was like, these guys are wide receivers and they're that big and physical and fast and athletic. He could be the next.
Awesome.
I'll go with him.
Awesome. Data Master over on YouTube wants to know, how much will we really learn from a Hall of Fame game or a preseason game?
I mean, you're going to learn about I hate to use this term, back half of the roster, but that's what we're going to learn. We're going to learn about some of the young guys. It's a fact-finding mission for the coaching staff and for the scouting department to see what the depth of the football team looks like. Heck, a lot of your frontline players probably aren't even going to suit up. I mean, they'll suit up, they'll have their jerseys on, and they'll have a bunch of sunflower seeds in their mouth. All right, that's what they're going to be doing. You don't want to risk them at that point. But I think from a mentality standpoint, again, right, we started off this whole session talking about the physicality of the offensive line.
Right.
I think that's what you're going to see right off the bat. This one, a play calling selection, personnel grouping selection on the offensive side. This is who Pittsburgh is going to want to be this year. Look, if Mr. Rooney says it, I'm sure Mike's paying attention, and so is Matt Canada. Right. If he said, I want my football team to be more physical, that's what they're going to be. So I think that's what we'll learn.
Nice. And no, Steeler Nation, I'm not going to be fielding any questions about Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers taking him, because that is a pipe dream. We both know it. we know your personal takes on Aaron Rodgers.
I saw some pictures of his private plane touching down in Green Bay last night.
So, there you go.
So I think he's already up there, probably already getting his helmet fitted and stuff. So
perfect. So last question for you from Cope over at SteelerNation.com. You've been a scout and director of pro personnel for Washington and Philadelphia. If there was any front office or coaching job, is there any front office or coaching job that would make you want to leave broadcasting?
Oh man, this is always a funny question. Let me answer it this way.
Okay.
I'm at the very pinnacle of broadcasting, doing Monday Night Football. Right. I have a great job.
Yeah.
I make great money. I have a lot of flexibility with my family and all. I'm as content as can be, and have a lot more goals I want to reach. That being said, there are legacy franchises in the NFL that if they came calling, of course you'd be like, yeah, I'm there. I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Steelers.
Yeah.
Giants. Raiders. Those are the three teams that come to my mind right off the bat.
Nice.
And those are things I talk to my family about all the time. Steelers, Giants, Raiders. They'll be like, hey, would you like to? I'll be like, when? When would you like to talk? When would you like to talk? And that's just being honest, But look, ESPN's been great. Monday Night Football is the very best. We're gonna kick ass this year because fans are gonna be back.
Right.
There's so much excitement. It's our second year in the booth together, and look, I love it, man. I really do love talking to the coaches, the players. This year, we'll be able to get to go to practice, be down on the field before games.
Nice.
And it doesn't
get kind of back to normal a little bit.
Yeah, man. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. So would you say then that general manager would be your dream job for one of those three franchises?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not.
Because I didn't know if you wanted to go on the coaching end at all, or if you're stay in the front office. Yeah.
It's funny. Marvin Lewis.
Yeah.
Way back in 2002, I think it was, when he was in Washington, right before he went to Cincinnati. So I guess he went to Cincinnati in 2003. He was only with us 1 year in Washington, I believe.
Uh-huh.
I remember saying to him before he left, he was like, I was like, Marvin, I'm kind of like thinking, maybe I should leave here and get in the coach. And he said, no, stay in the front office. He goes, it's too temporary on the coaching side, although he was at Cincinnati for years and years and years.
Right. Yeah.
And we see GMs are getting cycled just like coaches now.
Yeah.
I've always, honestly, I think I would have been a pretty damn good coach because I'm pretty cerebral and I see the game big picture. Yeah. But I mean that ship sailed 25 years ago, and for me it would only be to run a team, pick a coach, help build a roster, all that stuff. Other than that, I'm good.
Steeler Nation, you have to follow this man, Louis Riddick, one of the smartest minds in all of football. Be sure to check him out on social media, Instagram at Louis.Riddick, at LOUIS.RIDDICK, Twitter at LRiddick ESPN. That is LRIDDICK ESPN. Louis, thank you so much for sharing your time with Steeler Nation today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. See you guys this fall.
Awesome. See you soon.
Okay.
And Steeler Nation, be sure, come on over to SteelerNation.com. You can get some great gear, great t-shirts at SteelerNation.com. Apparel page. We have any size and colors and such great stuff up there. So go ahead and check that out. Get some t-shirts. Get ready to get geared up here for training camp because it's hot out there. You can't wear the jerseys. So get our great t-shirts coming over here at SteelerNation.com. We also are the best site for fast, unique Steelers content on the internet. Check out the podcast button to listen to one of our many interviews. Check out the Yins Hers podcast. Just had Pat Fryermuth on not long ago, doing Mrs. Tomlin here soon. And the best football discussion on the interweb over at the football forum. So come and join that. It's free to join. You can ask questions and you get highlighted to ask any question for any interviewed person if you're over at the football forum for SteelerNation.com. Check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can watch these vidcasts and watch them as much as you like, or check them out if you miss a podcast over at youtube.com/SteelerNation. Tweet us at SteelerNation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the Steeler Nation podcast on Twitter at _SN podcast. And you can follow me on both Twitter and Instagram at SN_Striker, Striker spelled with a Y. Thanks again for joining us. The SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, with Louis Riddick, rooting along with you, as always. Go